What's up, guys? We're going to look at Advent of Code Day 9, maybe 10 as well today, because I'm trying to catch up after missing a few. The theme for Day 9 was really cool. It's called a rope bridge, and it has this idea of a rope with knots in it. At first just 2, but then it has more. And when the head moves, the other ones move to follow. And they're not perfectly mirroring because sometimes the head moves a lot and it takes a second for the tail to catch up. But the way they give it to us is instructions for the head, right, up, left, down, and then a magnitude. And then we have to keep this sort of cycle going where it moves and then the other guy has to try to catch up. It doesn't move super far, but it'll get there after a few steps. The rules are if it's overlapping or 1 away, don't worry about it. If it's 2 or more in a straight direction, we move in that direction. If it's diagonal, then we move 1 diagonal, but only 1. So this is asking us where has the tail been. So for that I used a set because we don't care if it goes back to the same place again, just that that place was already in the set so nothing happens. And the code I wrote was surely not the shortest version. I'm betting people out there did 10 lines or something, but I set up a little head object with responses to the directions, and then unfortunately it doesn't move all at once. It's like if you tell it to go up 4, you can't just say +4. You have to say 1 and then update the tail, another, update the tail, back and forth. And I just set up plus, but actually the way I set it up was up is negative because I'm used to Pygame, or I was looking at some videos of p5.js where they start at 0, 0 in the corner, trying to figure out where to point. 0, 0 is in the corner, and therefore going over is positive, but going down is also positive, which is not how it works in Cartesian plane stuff. Then the tail is a little more interesting because it has to follow, and the way it follows is I have it pretty much keep track of everything inside of the object. It doesn't get told much from outside, so it knows what's on the left, it knows what's on the right, and it knows where it's been. It has this update, which is to say, okay, we're not going to move if we're close enough. We're going to move vertically sometimes, horizontally sometimes, and then diagonally sometimes. The movements are always 1, so I made a little function to get the sign. I don't know, there's probably a built-in, but I couldn't find it. And actually now I'm noticing this doesn't even work for 0, but in the context of my code, a 0 would never get to that point. But this just says, hey, if we're moving right, it's just 1. And if we're moving left, it's just -1. We don't care about the amount, we just care about the, almost Boolean element of positive or negative. And then in part 1, there's just 1 head and 1 tail. I ended up setting this up to work with part 1 and 2. So if I say 1 tail, then it's got a single head, a single tail, and the head moves, the tail tries to catch up all the way down the line, and it ends up having visited this many spots, 6037, which is a lot, right? I have these print statements every move because I wanted to track how it was going, and it ended up being fine. The hard part was part 2, where you don't have a single tail. You have the head moves, the tail follows, but then another tail follows that one, and another one follows that one. They're not looking at the head, they're only looking at the next guy in line. And so I had to make a loop to create them and make them know about each other. And then of course the last one is slightly different because it doesn't have anyone following. And then the last one is also the one we have to track. So when it asks in part 2 how many spots have we visited, it's talking about the 9th knot, K-N-O-T, in the rope. This one was really fun, IMO, because you get to use a little bit of object stuff. I like the update method. It reminds me of stuff you do in graphical, like if you have a game, you'd run the update method on your objects or something. And this one doesn't really fit that because it's not frame by frame. It's whenever the head moves, it triggers them and then it moves again in that same frame, and then it triggers them again. So it's not really timing based. It depends on if the head makes a big move, then the other guys make more. If the head makes a small move, they might not do anything at all. But the idea is really nice. And that's pretty much it for today. I really had fun making this one. It wasn't too hard. It was just setting up this thing, which is to have a single head and single tail is fine. Lots of tails. I ended up deciding to let them know about each other, so they know which one's on the left and which one's on the right. I could have had some outside force directing them to say, hey, you do this, you do this. But I liked to just pile it all on the object. They don't all need to do this. They don't all need to have the visited attribute, because only one of them provides it at the end, but I didn't want to have any more conditionals in there. So that was a great one. I'm going to try to do day 10 as well today, and maybe even 11 to catch up. Thanks.